Some preserve history, others preserve horror. We open the vaults of unease to meet the keepers of fright folklore and modern mayhem. This is Working the Fright Shift.
Clock into Working the Fright Shift, the gateway between imagination and fear, with your host, Ted Doherty.
Hey everybody, it's your host here, Ted Doherty. Thank you so much for tuning into Working the Fright Shift. Tonight, I welcome social media standout Jordan of Cupcakes and Coasters, a fear architect who lives and breathes the worlds of Halloween, thrill rides, and themed entertainment. But first, let's dissect the anatomy of dread in this week's Horror Blueprint.
The Horror Blueprint, the art behind the fear.
Tonight, we embark on a journey into the shadowy realm where music itself becomes a haunting force. This isn't just about notes or rhythms. It's about how sound can summon dread, stir the soul, and echo the darkest corners of the human psyche. For centuries, composers have woven tales of terror and mystery through symphonies and sonatas, crafting melodies that don't just accompany horror, they become horror. From the chilling dance of skeletons to the primal rituals of ancient rites, classical music has shaped the very soundtrack of fear. Music haunts us because it speaks directly to our emotions, bypassing logic and tapping into something primal. It can mimic the creak of a door, the whisper of ghosts, or the pounding of a terrified heart. I'm going to explore how some timeless compositions laid the groundwork for the scary soundscapes that define horror today. Now, before I dive in, I want to level the playing field a little bit because no matter what your background with classical music is, whether you've studied it, avoided it, loved it, hated it, rolled your eyes at it, you have almost certainly heard the pieces I'm going to talk about. They've been hiding in plain sight your whole life, woven into the backbone of horror films, haunted attractions, and even the soundtracks that shaped your earliest Halloween memories. So as I go through these, try to set aside whatever you think you know about the quote-unquote classics. I ask that you please try and listen to what I'm going to say with an open mind, because these works were not written to sit politely in some sort of stuffy, hoity-toity vibe, nose in the air attitude. That is not what this is. These were built to unsettle, to provoke, to haunt. And once you think about them through that lens, maybe you'll realize that these have been part of your horror vocabulary all along. So prepare to listen with new ears as I uncover some music that continues to haunt our nightmares. So picture this: midnight strikes, death himself grabs a violin, and corpses, skeletons, rise from their graves to dance until dawn. Well, that's the premise of Danse Macabre by Camille Saint-Saëns that premiered June 23rd, 1867. The eerie violin solo represents death, and the rattling xylophone mimics bones clattering. Saint-Saëns originally wrote it as a song with lyrics about skeletons, but later turned it into a full orchestral piece. Music historian Michael Steinberg once said, "It's a piece that makes death playful, but never lets you forget its chill." This music has been used in countless films and Halloween events. You've most likely heard it, and it has cemented its place as a musical symbol of the macabre. Now, if you have seen Disney's Fantasia, you know this one. Modest Mussorgsky's Night on Bald Mountain, completed June 23rd, 1867. Mussorgsky imagined witches gathering on a mountain, summoning demons in a wild, chaotic ritual. The music builds with terrifying brass and strings, painting a scene of supernatural frenzy. Disney's animation brought it to new audiences, but the original intent was pure horror. Scholar Richard Taruskin noted, Mussorgsky gave sound to the nightmare of folklore. The piece's dark, swirling motifs have inspired many horror composers to evoke a sense of dread and chaos. Next up, Igor Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, which premiered May 29th, 1913. That premiere is important because, believe it or not, this ballet caused a riot. Why? The pounding rhythms, the dissonant harmonies, and shocking story, a pagan ritual ending with a girl dancing herself to death. Imagine the stuffy audience expecting elegance and instead getting raw, primal chaos. That is horror in sound. Stravinsky himself said, I was guided by no system. I heard and I wrote what I heard. The brutality of the music mirrors the brutality of the story. How about Hector Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique, which premiered December 5th, 1830? This is one of the most macabre symphonies ever written. Berlioz tells the story of an artist descending into madness who is obsessed with a woman. In a portion of it, in the fourth movement, he imagines his own execution. The basses literally play a thud that represents his head dropping into a basket after the guillotine. I'm a bass player, so I always love playing that part. In another movement, the fifth movement, it is named Dream of a Witch's Sabbath. And this is where Berlioz unleashes the full macabre spectacle. The artist envisions himself at a terrifying gathering surrounded by spirits and evil laughter, and the twisted parody of the beloved's theme now transformed into a mocking dance. The orchestra conjures bells tolling for the dead to kick things off, and these different elements create a sonic telling of chaos and damnation, a witch's Sabbath that is both theatrical and scary. It is the descent into the grotesque, capped by the fusion of sacred and profane, that all makes Berlioz's symphony one of the most macabre works in the classical canon. Creepy detail, though, Berlioz was inspired by his own obsessive love for an actress. Musicologist David Cairns wrote, "It is both autobiography and hallucination, a fever dream of horror." What about Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor? Well, you've heard this one countless times at haunted house scenes. That dramatic organ opening instantly screams horror. But here's the twist. Bach never intended it to be scary. It was just a virtuosic organ piece. Over time, Hollywood adopted it as the sound of Gothic terror. Why? Well, probably because the organ's booming resonance feels like the voice of doom echoing through cathedrals. Its use in films like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde helped cement its association with horror. And then there's Edvard Grieg's In the Hall of the Mountain King, composed in 1875. This piece starts quietly, almost sneaky, then builds into a frenzied climax. It tells the story of a boy sneaking into the Mountain King's hall, surrounded by trolls. The growing intensity feels like monsters closing in, but a fun fact, Grieg himself thought the piece was something for the trash heap, but audiences loved its sinister energy. And now, Mozart's Requiem, Dies Irae chant, meaning Day of Wrath. And Requiem, by the way, for those of you who don't know, it's a mass for the dead. Mozart's Requiem was composed in 1791. The Dies Irae chant dates back to medieval times, describing Judgment Day. Composers like Mozart turned it into thunderous, terrifying music. The loud, intense, fiery chorus make you feel like the apocalypse is happening right now. Film historian Alex Ross said the Dies Irae is the original horror soundtrack echoing across centuries. Its theme is used in tons of horror and thriller film scores to evoke doom. Now, a little bit of a different one, Richard Strauss's Death and Transfiguration, which premiered June 21st, 1890. This is what they call a tone poem, which in music is a piece that focuses on a story or a poem or a painting. And in this case, it's a terrifying story. Strauss paints the journey of a dying man, the horrific unknown of death waiting, pulling him in. Memories of his life are flashing by, his struggles, his love, his failures. It's all right there. And then they fade, and finally they lead to the slow heartbeat stopping. The ending is haunting, soft, fading notes that feel like life slipping away. Strauss himself said he wanted to capture the last breath of a soul. It's horror, but not in monsters, but in mortality itself. Composers weren't just writing abstract music with random notes and rhythms. Many were influenced by folklore, ghost stories, and even early cinema. Saint-Saëns loved the idea of skeletons dancing. Mussorgsky drew from Russian witch legends. Berlioz practically wrote a horror movie in symphonic form. These works laid the foundation for horror film composers. Fast forward to the 20th century, Bernard Herrmann used shrieking strings in Psycho. John Williams borrowed the intensity of Stravinsky for Jaws. Jerry Goldsmith's The Omen echoes the Dies Irae, and Danny Elfman's Monsters Unchained score channels the Gothic organ tradition of Bach. Without classical horror symphonies, modern horror soundtracks would not exist. I said it earlier, but most of you have heard these pieces that I have referenced tonight. You might not know who the composers are or what the music was truly about, but you have heard them. And what I've talked about is a tiny sliver of what's really out there. So when you're listening to a horror soundtrack for a haunted house, movies, video games, whatever, remember, it's all built on centuries of symphonic terror. From corpse dances to witch sabbaths to dying heartbeats. Classical composers gave us the foundation for fear. As historian Joseph Horowitz put it, classical music is the haunted house of Western culture. Its echoes never fade. Classical music is not just background. It is the very DNA of the horror blueprint. I hope you found the horror blueprint informative and insightful, but now it's time to turn our attention toward this week's fear architect, Jordan from Cupcakes and Coasters. She's become one of the most distinctive voices in the UK scare scene. Somebody who can walk into a haunt and immediately read the room, the craft, and the chaos with equal enthusiasm. She has spent years exploring everything from the country's biggest Halloween theme park events to the tiny, wonderfully scrappy independent haunts, all while bringing a lifelong love of theme parks, horror, and the macabre to her reviews. And of course, part of what makes Jordan so memorable is simply her. The unmistakable style, the personality, it's all part of how she experiences themed entertainment around her. And tonight, we're diving into the early influences that shaped her love of horror, the UK's must-see Halloween events, and the hidden gems she thinks deserve more international attention.
Fear Architects, crafting worlds of terror.
Welcome to Working the Fright Shift. Jordan, Cupcakes and Coasters, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great, and thank you so much for having me. It's been a while since I've done one of these, so when I got your email, I was very excited. I mean, it's February; it's pretty quiet at the moment, and any time's a good time to talk about spooky things. So yeah, absolutely, can't wait.
Oh, wonderful! Thank you again for doing this. And where are you calling us from?
I am sort of halfway between Alton Towers and Manchester, so sort of northwest England is where I'm calling you from today.
Wonderful. Jordan, I have questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, cool. Now, you have explored so many different corners of the UK scare scene. What's the very first Halloween event or attraction that made you think, wait a minute, this is my world now?
Do you know what's really funny? The first one I can actually properly remember, like a proper event. Like I've done a few kind of random scare things before, but I went to Thorpe Park in 2006 and I was always the organizer of my group of friends. And I would always be like, right, come on, guys, we're going to go to the theme park. It was always me. And one year I was like, we should go to Fright Nights. And I think I was like 15 or 16, but they had this like online marketing pushing their horror maze. It was called The Asylum at Thorpe Park. And I remember watching the trailer for that and being so terrified of that trailer. And we got in the queue to go, we were at the park and we got in the queue to go into the maze. And I actually chickened out. I couldn't do it because the trailer was so in my head and it got me so bad. And I was like, I can't do it. And I could see it. And I was like, no, do you know what? I'm so nervous. I can't do it. And then we went back the next year and I did it. And I remember like it was so visceral, like I can still feel it right now. I was so scared of it, and the attraction itself, it lived up to it. And even they used to make you stand outside and put your hands on the shoulders of the person in front of you. They don't really do that in the maces anymore, but they used to. And I remember my heart beating so fast and I loved it. And that maze was there for like 13 years or something. It was there. It was like a proper iconic Thorpe Park Fright Nights. Everyone knows the Asylum at Thorpe Park Fright Nights in the UK. It's so funny thinking about that now, though, because when I think back to what it was compared to what we get from attractions now, from haunts and things, it was pretty basic. Like it was kind of like some chain link fencing and some strobe lights. And that was kind of it. I remember there was one where they had like a chest freezer that someone would like slam and make you jump. But that was basically it. And now I think if I went into something like that now, I'd be like, what is this? But at the time, it did the job and it was terrifying. But that gave me my first taste of it. And I was like, yeah, I need to scope out more of these for sure.
Oh, I love to hear it. Now, what early films, books, or childhood experiences shaped your love of the macabre?
So I grew up going to the theme parks, and I grew up in the south, and our local park was Chesington World of Adventures, and we had the iconic. I mean, it's still there, the Vampire Ride, which is a roller coaster themed. The whole area was like Transylvania, and you walked in. It had all these like Bavarian buildings, and you went into the station of the roller coaster, and it had this like creepy organ music. And there was an animatronic of the vampire playing the organ. And that always, and I'm sure it's the same for a lot of other people from the UK, that sticks out to me as like something so memorable, but really scary. And but I feel like in the UK, we kind of blend that, like that general like scariness is kind of woven into our kids attractions anyway. So certainly that's something that stuck out to me from a theme park perspective. But I also grew up like I love movies. It's like my other big passion is like theme parks, horror mazes, and then movies. Not just horror movies, I like all kinds. But it was things like I love animation. And I remember do you ever see the animated BFG movie? I don't know
Oh, yes. Yes.
yeah, I think it was the guy who plays Del Boy from Only Fools and Horses voiced the BFG, which I found out when I was an adult and that blew my mind. But there was the giants, and the way the giants were animated was just, they call it like nightmare fuel now is what you'd call it. But I remember having like absolute nightmares about that. But there was always something really like, well, I watch it again. Like, like it's almost like I know it's scary, but I kind of like it. Anything Roald Dahl, really. Like I grew up reading those books as well, The Witches as well, with the iconic Angelica Houston transformation scene. Those things that kind of, it's for kids and it's family, but they weren't afraid to really go there. And I feel like kids films these days don't really do that anymore. Like they're a bit more cautious, which is kind of sad because like my nephew, he's 7. And he loves scary stuff. Like he loves Five Nights at Freddy's. Like he's never seen it, but he loves like the whole concept of it. So it's like, I feel like kids do still like that scary stuff, and it obviously makes an impression because years later I'm still into it, and it's obviously come from kind of a love of that stuff to start off with.
Oh, I just love to hear all of that. Now, your reviews, I've been following for a while, they typically balance fun, fear, design critique. When you walk into a scare attraction nowadays for the first time, what elements immediately tell you this is going to be something special?
I think if it's a theme that I have not experienced before, that always intrigues me anyway, because I'm always like, oh, have never seen anyone do this before. Like that always piques my interest. But then if I go in and there's for some reason any use of height and space, if I go in somewhere and it has like two stories, immediately I'm like, oh, this is different. Like you've really kind of made use of the levels here. A really good soundtrack, something that kind of gets your heart racing and really sets the scene immediately. Like I find soundtrack actually is probably the most important thing when it comes to immersing you. And also anything that taps into like what I would call like a special interest of mine. So anything like that has like puppets in it. So at HHN last year in the Galkin house, the giant like creature puppet, love that. Anything like that is just, it sort of goes the extra mile creatively. I love anything themed to like cryptids. I love a cryptid fest. So like anything like Yeti, like that sort of thing, Bigfoot, yeah, that stuff. I want a Mothman maze, and I've never done one. I've never seen anyone do one. I would love to experience that. But yeah, it's because I feel like with the scare mazes and even horror movies as well, you tend to see a lot of the same themes come up time and time again. And actually you see trends as well. Like obviously we've just come out of a big vampire trend, zombies. We're kind of in a bit of a Frankenstein era at the moment. So I'm expecting to see that pop up as a theme in scare mazes over the next few years. But anyone who does something off the beaten path and something that's really weird, I usually really like.
Huge fan of all of that stuff. Thank you. Now, you've mentioned horror nights. The UK has such a unique haunt culture compared to the US. What do you think defines the British flavor of Halloween entertainment, and where do you see it evolving?
So I think the UK has this we've got a weird sense of humor. And I think that's kind of known globally that we have a weird sense of humor. Like I know a lot of people kind of, especially with things like Netflix, you try to watch like a British comedy show and you're going, what the hell is going on? I don't get it. Like, and I think you see that translated into a lot of our scare mazes. And I think that kind of, there's like a crudeness to it. And that actually has quite a lot of kind of legacy with our seaside attractions. They always had these kind of crude, like explicit jokes that you would see, but almost a bit tongue-in-cheek, kind of taking the mick out of itself. There's almost like a wink wink nod nod without being too explicit and out there. And I think that is really definitive of kind of the British way of doing things. I think because the US kind of, I know obviously like originally Halloween and all of that comes from Ireland, but really the US is kind of what commodified it, right? And kind of created the scare scene, as it were. So I feel like because the US is like the blueprint, it feels more pop culture and like that's the default. And then the British versions, almost a lot of the time you'll see like, okay, we have this like a clown maze. Okay, we've got a clown maze and a lot of places do a clown maze. How can we subvert that? And how can we do it a bit differently? And how can we make it really kind of gritty as well? I feel like we do kind of bleak and gritty. Well, I mean, we kind of used to that with the weather we have here. What is it? I think we still haven't had a day in 2026 yet where it hasn't rained in the UK. So it's we're used to that, but we kind of it kind of seeps into our pop culture and where it shows up in our design. And often a lot of the times, especially with the more indie events where they have a lower budget, that kind of gritty take can be used to their advantage just because they don't have the budget to spend on your big IPs and your big set pieces and things. So yeah, I feel like that comes through too. That resonates quite well with when I think of what's a quintessentially British horror attraction. Those are the things that stand out to me.
fascinating. Now, generally speaking, for somebody visiting the UK specifically for macabre tourism, what are the major theme park Halloween events that are a must see and why?
So in the UK, in terms of theme park Halloween events, I would say there's two. One's in I would call it the North, but if you call it the North to people who live here, they say it's not the North. But we have one in the North called Scarefest, that's at Alton Towers, and we have one in the South called Fright Nights, and that's at Thorpe Park. So Fright Nights, I would say, is the more extreme of the two. Fright Nights is what I referred to earlier, home of the asylum. They've had loads of iconic scare mazes across the years, and I feel like growing up in the South, it's kind of a bit of a rite of passage to go to Thorpe Park Fright Nights. If you're a teenager, everyone goes to Thorpe Park Fright Nights. I think it's 25 years of Fright Nights this year.
Wow.
I think it is. That's the one in the South. And then in the North, you have Scarefest at Alton Towers. And for those who don't know, Alton Towers is a theme park here in the UK that's set in the grounds of a real stately home. Kind of looks a bit like a castle. It's not a castle. So it kind of has this natural gothic feeling to the whole place anyway. Like the whole place is kind of spooky, and a lot of the themes you see year round tap into that. And then with the Scarefest overlay, everything is just elevated, and it's a lot more family friendly, that event. But they do still have some really good horror mazes, and Alton Towers tend to do a lot of their horror mazes based around themes that you find in the rides year round. So the mazes almost feel like a spin-off of the ride, which is really cool for people like me who are like ride geeks as well and love all the kind of the lore of the attractions themselves. It's really cool. But Fright Nights for me is just, like I said, I don't live in the South anymore, but I did for most of my life, and that's the one I would go to. I still go to every single year in, year out. I make sure that I go to Fright Nights, and it's every year they're doing something different, and that's the place where I remember being really petrified, scared for the very first time. So in my head, that, like Fright Nights at Thorpe Park is Halloween to me, is like kind of the origin of my love of scare mazes. So yeah, definitely those two.
Oh, thanks for sharing all that. Now, outside the theme parks, what are some of the lesser known UK scare attractions or events that you think deserves way more international attention?
In the UK, there's the biggest competitor, I would say, to the theme parks that we have is Tully's Shocktoberfest,
Huh.
which is based in the south of England, and that's huge. I think they have like 12 haunts there now. It's a farm. And they just every year they expand. They have a haunted hayride. They have mazes with every single theme you can possibly think of. They have a maze that's like a prison breakout, and the whole thing is in shipping containers, wastelands. That's what it's called, Wastelands Penitentiary. And the end of it, it's like a full breakout. All the prisoners are broken out, and you're weaving in and out of the cells with strobe lights going off and alarms. And but it's got this like heavy metal pounding soundtrack playing at the same time. And it's like, I never found it scary. I just loved it. I remember the first time going in, I was like, oh, this is like a party. Like, I love this. Like, I was just like bouncing through it. Like, this is great. So definitely Tully Shocktoberfest. And that one I always liken to like, it feels like being at a music festival, but it's Halloween. That's how I would describe Shocktoberfest to anyone who hasn't been to that before. But there's a few smaller ones as well that I really love. So there's one called Fear, a place called Avon Valley, that's southwest England, kind of near Bristol. And that is on a farm as well, but they are the ones who always are doing things in a really theatrical way, and they go out of their way to bring things that you've never seen before in the UK, completely different, completely unique. Like they have one where you had to wear like waders, and you were like submerged in water, and you were like in a sewer, and people were jumping out at you. Really cool. They have a mini show that, I don't know if they still have it, but they did have a mini show called The Exorcism, and you were in groups of 8, and they had just some really, really cool. I don't want to give too many spoilers in case people go, because like there was a special effect in there, and I was like, I had no idea how you did that, but it was like just really cool. And considering it's this indie event that is self-funded, it's just incredible to see the innovation that they're able to bring on such a small budget as well, compared to like the bigger players. And then the last one I wanted to mention was a place called Extreme Screen. and that's in the Midlands. Again, it's set on like a small, in the day it's like a small family theme park, but at night it's this really really extreme horror event. And again, they're the ones, when I was mentioning places that do themes that I've never seen before, they're very very good at that. So I went last year and I hadn't been for a few years, and they had a maze that was themed to like a German nightclub where there were vampires, but you entered the maze by going through like a German kebab shop. And they built it, and it was so cool. And when you went in, you were down the back alleys in Berlin, and it was this like really tall alley that I built, and it felt so real. And again, like, they don't have loads of money to spend on this, so I'm just kind of marveling at what they've been able to create on such a small budget. Like, they're the ones I would always recommend that people check out outside of the theme parks.
They sound incredible, very ambitious. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, well, now on the flip side of it, you have visited haunts here in the United States. Now, what is one international trend that you would love to see adopted by UK scare creators?
I think the like not being scared to be weird. Like, in the UK, like we kind of have got to the point now where every year there are new events popping up, which is obviously great for people like me, but that also means that everyone's trying to take that next step to be the biggest and best. But it doesn't go down like the horrifying extreme, oh, we're going to make you cry and hate every moment of this route, which it very easily could. You could very easily go for that shock value, but they don't. They seem to just be getting more and more creative and like, what's the weirdest theme we could do. I did one last year at an event called Screams in York, and they have a maze called Black Market. And again, they make you're not allowed to speak about what happens in Black Market, but it's a kind of a solo experience. But that's right on the cusp of it being too extreme. It's very very intense experience, but some really weird stuff happens in there that I've never seen before. It's like, oh, you've been really ballsy here, and like, this could have gone so badly for you, but actually everyone comes out and it's like everyone's smiling and laughing through being terrified when they're coming out, and they make a bit of a spectacle of everyone coming out of the maze, as a lot of these places do. But I think it's a virtue to be weird, because it often unlocks areas you hadn't previously thought of. And like I said, when I see something that no one else has done before, it's usually because they're doing something weird. So I think it's worth considering.
Absolutely. Now, in general, what are some of the favorite haunts or events that you've seen out here in the United States?
So I haven't done that many in the US. I've done Horror Nights in Orlando. I've done Busch Gardens, and I've done SeaWorld. But the standout maze that always comes into my head that I loved, and then when I saw Sinners, I was like, oh, y'all went and did Darkest Deal at Universal Orlando. Like, so I was like, because I came out, I remember coming out of Darkest Deal and being like, that was so good. Like, again, it's something I'd never seen before. The lore, the narrative, the storytelling throughout, so good, just so good. That always sticks out in my head. The one at Busch Gardens that I always really liked, and I can't remember, it was like a sleep clinic, and I can't remember what it was called, but they had this room where it was basically like you were at like a treatment facility, and they were treating you for insomnia, and it's like all these different treatments. And the final room was like you were meant to be like waking from a dream, but they had the whole room move like this, and the walls were moving, and I was like, that is such a cool effect. I would love to get out to some more haunts. Like, I would love to do Not Scary Farm. I really want to go and do some indie stuff. I want to go to Haunted Overload in the Northeast. That's always been on my bucket list. For one reason or another, I haven't made it up there yet. I've had it on the books for a few times, and it just hasn't happened. But it will happen.
You're going to have to make it out here all the way to the West Coast one day. Not Scary Farm, Six Flags Magic Mountain out here is a very big event. Queen Mary's Dark Harbor, and of course Universal Studios Hollywood for their Halloween Horror Nights. So it's all waiting for you when you're able to make it out here. Now, on a totally different note, your personal style. We love it. It's very recognizable part of who you are. What inspires the way that you present yourself in the world of theme parks and horror, and How do you think your aesthetic shapes the way you experience macabre entertainment?
That's such a good question. And I basically just make it up as I go along. I kind of like, I get inspiration from everywhere. Like at the moment, I don't know if that's out on the cinema at the same time here as it is for you guys, but we've got Wuthering Heights, and
Yep.
the costuming in that film. I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to see it tomorrow, but I'm just like, it like something clicks in my brain and I'm like, oh, and then I get onto like Vinted and I like curate things and I kind of go, okay, that would go with that. And then I think of, okay, well, where am I going to wear it? And it specifically where I'm going to wear it helps me tailor what I'm putting together. So we recently went to Disneyland Paris and I wanted to do an outfit that loosely fit the themes and like color ways of each of the lands in the park.
Oh.
So I did that and I kind of, because I don't want it to be like Disney bounding. I don't want it to be like a costume. But I like it to have a little nod. So that tends to be how I put it together. And actually, Vinted has been like the lifesaver in that because you can go on there and get pieces for like a couple of quid. And I'm not like spending hundreds of pounds on outfits that I might only wear once. I do love it, and it is a big part of any trip that I plan. Halloween, especially, I do plan out all of my outfits because it's part of how I experience my days out and places I go. I love to kind of dress for the occasion as well. I wear a lot of hats and things. I've usually got something on my head. Today it's an Alice band, but I've usually got something on my head. And I made the mistake last year. We went to an amazing event in Newcastle called Psychopath. And I had a yellow beret on, and it might as well have said "pick on me" on my back because the minute I walked in, I was like, why did I do this? And every single step of the way, the whole night, I got picked on. I was like, yeah, I should have worn a yellow hat to the horror event.
Now, just a couple last questions. We can wrap it up. Generally speaking, looking ahead, what corners of the macabre world are you most excited to explore next?
So there's a few that I would love to experience. I really, really, I mean, I want to go to Universal Beijing anyway, but it goes viral every year. I think they've had it for the past few years, and they have this scene where they have like a bathtub scare, and I just want to see it for myself because it's one of those things like I love when there's a scare and I'm like, how the hell are you doing this? Like, and it's like, is it one of those never in the UK because of health and safety law things that they can get away with in Asia? Or but that I would just love generally. I went to Japan in 2015 and we did go in September, so we did catch a bit of horror nights, but we weren't there properly for the event, so we kind of had to get out. But I feel like I would just love to experience how Asia does Halloween because I know that like culturally it's treated very, very differently. So I would just love to see that. I mean, in the US again, kind of adjacent, but Villains Land in Magic Kingdom that's coming. They're building a whole land themed to the Disney villains. And I'm just after I went to Epic Universe last year and I got to go to Darkmoor and see how they brought all of that to life. But that's kind of Universal's bread and butter. They come from monsters. That's their legacy. So they're kind of well equipped to do it. Whereas Disney, I'm like, I'm just so intrigued to see if they make it scary or is it going to be a bit cutesy? I don't know. I'm very intrigued to see that. But then lastly, like sticking to the Halloween Horror Nights theme, we're getting Universal's coming to the UK. We're getting a Universal Studios park. So I'm so interested to see. I mean, they've trademarked Horror Nights, so we know it's probably coming. It would be weird if they didn't do it, I think.
Right.
But I'm really interested to see how they do it to a British audience who are really used to actually very extreme, very hands-on scare events, which Horror Nights, in my experience, is not. It's more theatrical. So I just wonder how it will be received if people are going to go to this and go with an idea of what they think this is based on, Thorpe Park or something like that. And then it's not that. I'm interested to see how they handle it, but it will be very cool for that to come to the UK.
Jordan, where can people follow your journey?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm most active on Instagram. So it's Cupcakes and Coasters on Instagram. You can also follow me on Twitter, sharing my very important thoughts and opinions. That's cupcake_coaster. Yeah, they're the main two. I do have a YouTube channel. I haven't uploaded on there for like coming on 2 years just because I got lazy with it. Maybe one day I'll pick it back up, but I'm very much enjoying Instagram and like making reels, and like I said, all my outfits and stuff are on there and I like to post those. So, and usually if I go on a day out or somewhere, I'm posting stories and things from there. So that's probably the best place to get me.
Wonderful. Jordan, thank you so very much for working the Fright Shift. Thanks again, Jordan of Cupcakes and Coasters, for joining me and sharing those wonderful stories with all of us. And now I'll reflect on the experiences that quietly shaped my creative instincts in Echoes of the Past.
Echoes of the past. The origins of scare experiences.
Tonight, I'm wandering into a place that mixes history, mystery, and yes, for many folks, leans on the macabre and eerie side. Cemeteries. Now, a lot of us think of cemeteries as places we visit to honor loved ones. But in recent years, they've also become destinations for tours, storytelling, and even tourism. So why do people line up to stroll among the headstones of strangers? Historian Dr. Keith Eggener once said, "Cemeteries are archives of stone and landscape, where you can read the story of a community in the names, symbols, and epitaphs carved into the markers. They're not just about death. They're about life, memory, culture. For some, that mix of history and atmosphere is irresistible." So let's start in New Orleans, where St. Louis Cemetery number 1 has been drawing visitors since the 1800s. It's famous for its above-ground tombs because the water level, the ground is so low there, but those haunting little cities of the dead. You'll find the resting place of Marie Laveau, the legendary voodoo queen who died in 1881. Her tomb is still visited by people leaving offerings, hoping for a little of her magic. The cemetery feels like a stage set with its crumbling walls and ornate vaults. It's no wonder it's one of the most toured burial grounds in America. And if we head north to Salem, Massachusetts, well, you'll find tours that weave together the town's infamous witch trials of 1692 with its historic graveyards. The Charter Street Cemetery, also called the Old Burying Point, many believe is the oldest in Salem, dating back to 1637. Guides point out the grave of Judge John Hawthorne, one of the witch trial judges, and connect the stones to the stories of hysteria and persecution. Salem's tours are popular because they blend history with legend, and visitors feel like they're walking through the pages of a ghost story. In Savannah, Georgia, the Bonaventure Cemetery is practically a Southern Gothic novel come to life. Spanish moss drapes over marble angels, and the place became famous after John Barron's Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil in 1994. The Bird Girl statue from the book cover once stood here, and though it's now in a museum, the cemetery still draws thousands of visitors. Notable burials include songwriter Johnny Mercer, who gave us songs like Moon River. Bonaventure is less about fear and more about atmosphere. It's hauntingly beautiful. Out west, Tombstone's Boot Hill Graveyard is a little rough and a real reminder of frontier justice. Many of the markers are blunt: murdered in a saloon brawl or shot by sheriff. The most famous graves belong to Billy Clanton and Frank and Tom McLaury, killed in the gunfight at the OK Corral in 1881. The cemetery captures the Wild West's mix of violence and legend, and visitors love that raw honesty carved into the epitaphs. And then there's Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, where the glamour of film history meets the quiet of the grave. Stars like Rudolph Valentino, who died in 1926, Judy Garland, who passed in 1969, tons of famous people, Mila Nurmi, the actress who played Vampira, Darren McGavin, the Night Stalker, Johnny Ramone, Chris Cornell, they're all buried here. Tours led by historian Carrie Bible bring the stories to life, mixing Hollywood lore with cemetery history. Hollywood Forever even hosts movie nights projected against mausoleum walls, proof that cemeteries can be cultural spaces as much as memorial ones. So what is it about cemeteries that makes them so compelling? Not just for tourists, but for haunt creators like me? Well, experts often say that cemeteries tap into our primal fear of death and finality. They're liminal spaces, places where the living brush up against the memory of the dead. Folklore has told us that graveyards are home to restless spirits. In popular media, from Gothic novels to horror films, they've all trained us to expect ghouls lurking among the stones. Speaking of ghouls, they're known for hanging around cemeteries. Do you know what the actual definition of that creature is? The word comes from Arabic folklore describing a creature that feeds on corpses and haunts burial grounds. That image has stuck with us, shaping how cemeteries are portrayed in horror. In my own work, cemeteries have been a recurring stage. Back in 2019 at the LA Haunted Hayride, we had guests exit the actual hayride attraction through a cemetery filled with 1980s punk vampires. That was all later moved into the midnight mortuary attraction at that event, but when we were at Dark Harbor in 2018, there was a nautical cemetery blending shipwreck lore with graveyard imagery. And for Not Scary Farm's 50th anniversary in 2023, we created the Chilling Chambers Maze with a finale that was a graveyard filled with monuments to past mazes, a cemetery of scary farm and haunt memories. And we thought that would be a cool way to end that maze. And each of these attractions and countless others that people have created around the world that include graveyard scenes in their attractions, I think they worked because, well, cemeteries are instantly evocative. They carry weight, they carry atmosphere, and a built-in sense of unease. Cemeteries are places of history, art, and stories. They remind us of mortality, yes, but they also connect us to community, culture, and imagination. So whether you're walking through above-ground cemeteries in New Orleans, standing under the moss in Savannah, or watching a film at Hollywood Forever, you are stepping into a space where the past whispers to the present. And that's why I believe cemeteries will always haunt us in tourism, folklore, and in the attractions we build. They are the perfect reminder that the line between the living and the dead is thinner than we think. And cemeteries are full of contradictions. They're solemn, they're sacred, but they're also places of art, legend, and even celebration. They remind us of mortality, but they also show us beauty in stone carvings and landscapes, and in the way memory refuses to fade. For those of us who create Halloween and haunt entertainment, cemeteries are a treasure chest of inspiration. The atmosphere, the stories, the way they make you feel, it all teaches us how to stir fear, wonder, and reflection. They remind us that the best scares don't need to come from cheap gags, but from tapping into something deeper, history, emotion, that uneasy space between the living and the dead. And maybe that's why cemeteries fascinate us. They're places where the past doesn't stay quiet, it speaks, sometimes softly, sometimes loudly. They represent the lives that came before, and they remind us that one day our own stories will be etched in stone as well. There's a famous quote that has appeared all over outside cemeteries. It's always haunted me. You've probably heard it a million times. But picture this as you think about the graves inside of a cemetery. As you are now, so once were we. As we are now, so you will be. Think about it. That goes for me. that goes for you. So the next time you find yourself wandering through the tombs, whether it's New Orleans, Salem, Savannah, Tombstone, Hollywood, pause for a moment. Listen. You might sense a whisper urging you to remember, to reflect, and to shape something new within the echoes of the past. And just like that, the lights dim on another shift. Huge thanks to our fear architect, Jordan of Cupcakes and Coasters. Within these stories is the blueprint of fear itself, how we face it, how it transforms us, how we create it, and sometimes how it sets us free. If you liked what you heard, do us a favor and tell a friend to tell a friend. Give us a good review, 5 stars, and help spread the word. Thanks for spending your nightmares with us. I'm your host, Ted Doherty. Beast wishes, and until we meet again, it's officially time to clock out of Working the Fright Shift. Working the Fright Shift is written and produced by Ted Doherty. No portion of this recording may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written and express permission of the producer. All opinions expressed in this recording are solely those of the individuals and do not necessarily reflect the views of the producer or affiliates. For more details, visit www.workingthefrightshift.com. Copyright 2026 Ted Doherty. All rights reserved.